Welcome to Sew with Monty. This video is about making a classic tote bag. I'm going to be showing you some tips that I also think might be helpful to you, and we're going to start by talking about the materials and supplies you need to make your tote bag. The outer part of the tote bag is two-tone. The bottom will be one color and the top will be another. And then the lining will be a third color. Now you can mix and match this if you want to change it and make your lining the same as the bottom of your bag, or make it all one color. You can do that, but we're going to start off in this method. I've chosen medium weight to lightweight fabrics because I want to use a size 14 needle. Anytime you're choosing fabric, you must also consider the layers of fabrics that you may be sewing over, not just a single layer. So when you're looking at the fabric store, you may want to double or triple roll your fabric so that you can see how thick you possibly might be sewing through, and make sure your needle is able to do this. I've also chosen a standard all-purpose thread. This is a Gutermann brand, and I've gotten the black and to match the bottom, a white to match the top, and a lining thread to match my inside lining. This way I'm all set, and when I change my fabrics, I'll change my threads accordingly. Now let's talk about the pattern pieces it's going to take to make this bag. So the first pattern pieces I want to discuss are the lining pieces. And this is the lining overall bag. You will cut two of these, and as you can see, it fits comfortably on a 44-45 inch width. If you get 58-60, you'll have a little extra over here, but you'll still need to get a half a yard for the bag lining itself. Now, if you want to add a pocket, you still cut two of these, but it's going to increase your yardage by a quarter yard. So that means you'll be buying 3/4 of a yard. If you add two pockets, you're going to need a yard. So no pockets, a half yard, one pocket, 3/4, two pockets, a yard of your lining fabric, and this will take care of lining. So let's move on to the next pattern pieces. The next pattern pieces are the tote bag top, which would be the one with the little bees on it, and the bottom is the black, solid black. Now also I've included a strap for my tote bag, and I'm going to be cutting two of these actually, and that's going to be in the black as well. So for the black, you're going to need a half yard, and for the top of the tote bag, the bees on the white fabric, is going to be another half yard. So a half yard for the bottom and the strap, and a half yard for the top. So half, half, and the lining, depending on how many pockets you do, will be a half, 3/4 to a yard. So that kind of wraps up how much fabric you need to purchase. Keep in mind that you're going to be working on a woven, not a knit, and you want to try to not make it difficult on yourself the first time out, so I would stay away from plushes like corduroy and velvet, or satins that are any kind of silkies that slide around. So let's go on, and I'm going to show you how to begin cutting, and we'll start with the lining. I have my lining material laid out and ready to mark my pattern and cut it out. The first thing I've done to all my fabrics are wash and dry and press them to make sure that I've gotten all the shrinkage out or any issues that might happen in laundering. This way my bag will be able to be washed and dried later on when I want to clean it. You want to make sure that your fabric, when you purchase it, is straight and not twisted. And when I talk about that, that means that the crosswise yarns in this fabric are not bowing or twisting in this direction. If you have twists, your selvages will not line up correctly. My advice is to test this in the store before you purchase it. Take a look at it, pull off enough yardage off the end of the boat and look at it and see if it's crooked. A lot of times people say, well, you can straighten it out, but you can only straighten it to a point. The fabric will always want to go back to what it originally was, even though you might have it straightened temporarily. So my advice is, if it's warped or twisted, just stay away from it and don't purchase it at all. Quilting fabric, as a rule, is usually pretty straight, so for linings and things, it works really great. It's a good weight. It's between a mid to lightweight, so it's not real heavy. And you can get a lot of different patterns and colors in quilting fabric. And that's what I've chosen for this lining. So let's go ahead, we're going to mark it, and I'm going to use Taylor's chalk, and I'm just going to go around the outside. Now, the pattern that I have made for this bag is basically 19 inches wide by 16 inches tall. And then I've cut 3-inch squares out of the corner, right here. So that's all you need. 19 wide, 16 tall, and 3-inch squares cut out of the corner. So I'm going to finish marking around the outside of this tote bag, and then I'm going to mark the first pocket here and the second one above. Note that I've got my pocket against the selvage. This allows me to have extra fabric over here that is folded, so I might be able to use it for something else, like maybe a little inside accessory bag inside my tote. The last thing I'm going to do on this pattern after I mark all the edges is I'm going to come back and I'm going to mark my pocket placement. Now you can also do this without this mark after you've sewn your pocket up. You can lay it out where you prefer to have it and sew it down to the outside. But I like to have marks here just to remind me of where I want my pocket to be. So I'm going to go ahead and finish marking this and cut it out, and then we'll go from there. I have my lining all cut out. This is the bag itself, the lining, and these two sections up here are going to be the pocket. The first thing I want to do is transfer the placement of my pocket onto the other side of my lining. Now, before we do that, I want to explain to you how I came about where I was going to put these dots. So, to determine where I'm going to put my pocket, the first thing I've done is draw a line that would be the bottom imaginary line of my bag. So this section right here is the bottom. So I've come up a 1/2 inch because a 1/2 inch is my seam allowance throughout the entire project. A 1/2 inch seam allowance is what I'm using. So I've come up a 1/2 inch and I've drawn a line here. And then I place this pocket centered. I line it up so it's centered on my bag, and I've drawn in the corners of my actual pocket bag. Now, keeping in mind that I have a 1/2 inch seam allowance on that, I've come down and in a 1/2 inch and drawn cross lines here to tell me that that's the finished corner of my pocket. Then just inside there, I've made a little punch with an awl. Now, the reason I've come inside there, I don't want this to show on my lining bag, so my mark will be covered with the pocket. So it's just inside that little corner, and that's how I marked it. And then I circled it so I would remember that, hey, I need to mark this. A closer look at this pocket placement dot right here, I've got the pin stuck in there, and I'm going to turn it over and mark the other side where the pin is coming out. The pin helps me determine where this mark is, and that way I have it now marked on both sides of my fabric. So I can remove the pin, and now we're ready to start sewing.